We gave you our best signings of the MLB offseason in our last episode, and it was supposed to be just one episode, but we made it two, damn it. But since we went best signings in the last episode, you guessed it, it's time to flip the script now. We are giving you our 3 worst signings of the MLB offseason, going back and forth, telling you which teams made the biggest mistakes, and some of the names on the list may surprise you. This is all coming up next on the Bush League Bros. Roll the open.
Now, certainly plenty of fanfare between these two brothers.
Just complete Bush League.
The little brother just trying to annoy big brother.
If you look at it on the surface, it's Bush League.
Something about that sticks in my craw.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Bush League Bros, partner of the House Call Sports. I'm here with Taylor. My name is Matt, and today we are giving our worst signings of the 2024 offseason. But before we get into that, please do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. And I gotta say, enough of this positive stuff. Okay, let's stop being positive is overrated. Okay, let's talk about what I really want to talk about. Let's get angry, let's get mean, and let's get critical, Taylor. All right, let's get into the worst contracts of MLB's 2024 offseason. So, Taylor, give me your number 3 worst contract of this offseason.
Well, Matt, this was kind of a tough one for me because there were a lot of deals this year that I didn't love, but there weren't any that I outright disliked. I just think the market overall was a little bit crazy this year and everybody was sort of overpaying for everyone. So I don't know if I would go so far as to put this list as like my worst deals, but these were definitely some of my, don't give me that face. Don't give me that
Come
face.
on, man.
I'm trying to qualify
it's the
here.
segment, man. It's the segment. It's worst deals. It has to be your worst deals,
Well,
man.
for me, it is more like my least favorite deals.
This guy.
But I'm going to start with, I'm cheating just like I did with the Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo signings because I'm combining 2 signings into one here. On November 27th, the Cardinals signed Sonny Gray. Makes sense. Loved it. Seems like a Cardinals kind of guy.
Good.
Great signing. I would almost say that was a signing that wasn't even optional for them. They kind of needed somebody at the top of that rotation that has a little bit of flash, a little bit of upside. A week earlier, though, on November 20th, the Cardinals signed Lance Lynn for 1 year, $11 million. Okay, never hurts to have another guy that's going to eat some innings for you. Kind of a fun reunion for the Cardinals. Then a day after that, on November 21st, the Cardinals signed Kyle Gibson to 1 year, $13 million. And when you look at these signings in isolation, I don't mind either of them. There's definitely value in these types of guys that are going to reliably eat innings for you. And I have respect for those guys that can go out and do that. But why do you need both of those guys with the Cardinals rotation that they have now for a team that needs to bounce back this year and should be able to win that division? I would have liked for them to add a little bit more upside to that rotation, even if it comes with some risk. I really think a guy like Frankie Montas would have made a lot of sense for them. Like, we have these guys like Miles Michaelis that we know are going to go out and throw 180 innings of very, very average baseball. Let's get a guy that can maybe do a little bit better than that. Because right now they just have a stable of arms that aren't really going to strike anybody out. And that's just going to put more pressure on a defense that wasn't really that good last year. So I don't know that really makes a ton of sense for them. Out of the 2, I like the Kyle Gibson signing a little bit more. He threw more innings. His ERA was a full run lower than Lance Lynn's, and they're only giving him about $2 million more. On top of that, now their entire projected rotation for the Cardinals is already 33, or they're going to be turning 33 soon. Signing both of these guys just feels like a really underwhelming move for a team that should be trying to win this division, and it feels like the Cardinals kind of just spent $24 million for the kind of guys they already have. And now with Sonny Gray already questionable to start opening day, this rotation just looks bad. And this just feels like a team that almost needs to go out and get Snell or Montgomery right now. I know since we aired our last episode about Montgomery, it's come out that there's 4 new teams interested in Montgomery and Snell. And I've got to imagine the Cardinals are one of those teams because their rotation just on paper looks pretty bad right now. And I don't like it.
The Cardinals, Taylor, I don't know how to put this in any better way, but they just haven't passed the vibe test the last couple of years.
No.
The vibes have just been
Did you see
weird.
Ollie Marmol and Lance Lynn actually just got thrown out of a spring training game by Angel Hernandez today?
I was going to talk
no
about
vibes.
that. I mean, Angel be throwing people out for sure, but I mean, like in spring training though, like you can't be that mad in spring training. Like in spring training, like like even last year we talked about it last year. The whole Ollie Marmol, Tyler O'Neill situation, that whole saga was weird. It felt off. Like you mentioned, Arenado has a down year. Yeah, Wilson Contreras, they move him from catcher, but they don't really move him from catcher. They, get Goldschmidt. He's having he had a little bit of a down year. So it's like the vibes are just so weird with the Cardinals. I don't even know what to think about the Cardinals. The fact that they're the favorites to win the division, like I would put money on them not winning the division just because the vibes are so strange in St. Louis. It just doesn't seem like a team that's going to be going on a division winning run, especially with other teams coming up like the Cubs who look really, really good. I think that would be kind of like my preliminary pick to win the division. But yeah, it's a very, very strange situation in St. Louis, Taylor, no doubt. But listen, Taylor, I'll get into my number 3 worst signing of the offseason. And again, let me just say, I'm opposite of you, Taylor. I really didn't dislike a lot of these signings in the offseason. And also, I'm going to stick to the segment. I'm going to call them the 3 worst signings of the offseason. I'm not just going to go off and do my own thing. I'm going to do what we decided on doing. Okay. I'm going to do that. Okay. I think a lot of them, especially for a lot of the teams, were actually pretty solid moves, and you can justify them very well. And there isn't a lot of them, like I said, that I didn't like. But with that being said, I don't think this contract is going to end up being bad because I think this player is going to end up being really good. Okay. But when I look at the total money given with the contract length itself and just the relatively unknown nature of the player himself, I think this contract has the highest potential of any this offseason to look back a decade from now and say, this is the worst contract of the offseason. And I'm kind of playing against my Shohei Ohtani rant. And I'm going at number 3. I'm going with Yoshinobu Yamamoto to the Los Angeles Dodgers for 12 years, $325 million. Now, what I just said is the main reason it's on this list. It's the sheer length and the size of the contract, okay? A 12-year commitment is a lot for someone who hasn't proved anything at the MLB level. You can't possibly argue he has not, okay? $325 million is a lot to commit to someone who has to move his entire life to a completely different country that he doesn't even speak the language, okay? Plus, he's going to a team where right away he is expected to be the ace on one of the greatest teams ever assembled. That is a hell of a lot of pressure to put on a 25-year-old. Baseball-wise, I think his game will translate to the MLB, but we do not know for sure. It is a complete unknown. Can he consistently get the best hitters in the world out enough to justify that money? That remains to be seen. But there are a lot of other counterpoints, obviously, to the argument that I just made. I think having Ohtani with him on the Dodgers, that's going to help him out a lot, both with his transition to the MLB game and with just moving him to moving to America and LA specifically. If his career goes how his fellow countryman and our boy Masahiro Tanaka's career goes, where he's good in the regular season, but then he takes it up to another level in the postseason, assuming he plays longer than Tanaka did in the MLB. Taylor, what would you think? I think the Dodgers have to take that. If he has a Masahiro Tanaka career and he kind of steps his game up in the playoffs, I think if he steps up in the postseason after being, even if he's league average in the regular season, I think that could easily be the reason the Dodgers win a couple of titles while he's there. But again, all of that is unknown, and everything revolving around Yamamoto is unknown right now. So a 12-year commitment for $325 million is a very steep price to pay, even if it is for someone as awesome and historic as a 25-year-old Japanese pitcher like Yamamoto is. So for those reasons, I got Yamamoto as my 3rd worst signing of the offseason, Taylor.
I think it's fair because you can argue that this is the riskiest contract, one of the riskiest contracts anyone's given out, like giving out 12 years at an AAV just north of 27 million. In my heart, I believe it's going to pay off because I like the guy's stuff, but you're right that there's definitely a chance it doesn't for whatever reason. I mean, there are questions about how his size is going to factor in. Compared to like the velocity he throws. You look at guys in the past like Tim Lincecum, who threw really hard with a small frame. Ultimately, the durability proved to be a problem. And if Yamamoto goes that route, then, this is not going to be a good deal. I believe in my heart this is going to be a good deal, but I can totally understand the risk that's involved here because it's a big gamble.
And again, I also believe it's going to end up working out. Like, don't get me wrong. I think it's going to end up working out for the Dodgers. But again, it's completely unknown. We don't know if it's going to work out or not. That's why I have it on here, strictly just from the risk factor and because of the unknown factor. I think it's got to be on here for those reasons.
And if that one goes bad, it's going real bad. real
that
fast.
bad. We talked about it with the pressure that he's going to be under. He's going to be under a lot of pressure right away to be the ace of the Los Angeles Dodgers. And Dodgers fans are looking for him to be that. And Dodgers fans are not going to be happy if he is not that. But Taylor, I'm kicking it back to you, man. The second worst signing of MLB's 2024 offseason. Who do you got?
Well, I'm going to be actually pretty surprised if this guy isn't also on your list, given your stance on the Houston Astros.
Oh,
Matt, Josh Hader is a really good closer, right? He's one of the best. Definitely a top 5 closer, would you say?
no.
Would you
not
put
a
him
top
on
five
your list
closer.
of top 5 closers?
Actually,
Oh, that's
I would
right.
not, Taylor.
You did not, which
I didn't.
personally I think is a bit of an omission, but it's your list.
Yeah, whatever, man.
But
yeah, whatever. Make
but
your own list.
also, Josh Hader is number 2 on my worst signings list, because when I look at the AL West, what I see is the defending world champions, the Rangers. I see a really talented young team in the Mariners that pretty successfully, I think, retooled their lineup and has an incredible pitching staff. And I see the Astros, who are still one of the best teams in the AL, but ultimately they barely came away with this division last year. So if you're the Houston Astros, you have to be assuming this year it's going to be another close race in the AL West. Every game's going to count, and you want to make sure you have the pitching depth to accommodate that and make sure that you've got the arms that can help you win those games in the dog days of August. You already have a proven closer and a proven postseason closer in Ryan Pressly, who's aging a little bit, but there's no reason to think his stuff won't be dominant again this year based on the fact that, he relies mostly on just movement and spin rates. He's not necessarily a high velo guy. And even if Pressly isn't his dominant self, you can fall back on Brian Abreu to fill in on that role, who seems like he's more than capable of being one of the best closers in the league if he's given a chance. You also lost a ton of innings out of your pen between Stanek, Maton, and Neris, so it makes sense that they would have some money budgeted to get some bullpen reinforcements. And I'm going to use the words of GM Dana Brown here. We were talking about improving the bullpen, which was part of our target for the offseason. Okay. You're off to a good start there, Dana Brown. You're on the right track. So we started looking at the prices of the relievers, and we just said, maybe we should just think about Hader. And then we started putting it together. Okay, is that really the depth of your GM thinking there, Dana Brown? I have to believe that one of the most successful franchises of the past decade put a little bit more thought into it than that, especially because the need for the Astros wasn't to get another closer or a better closer. It was to improve the bullpen. And of course, adding Josh Hader to any bullpen is going to improve it. But this just feels like a really poor allocation of resources. And with all the guys the Astros are hoping to lock up over the next couple of years, it just seems like this was a really impulsive and ill-conceived signing. And the most egregious part of this to me is that this year the Astros are paying relievers over $54 million. That is almost 23% of their entire 2024 payroll, which is the highest percentage in the league. And for that cost, they only have 3 arms that they really can trust in high leverage innings. And that's almost as much as the entire adjusted salary for the Oakland A's, which is around $58 million right now. And they've already got $44.5 million on the books for relievers next season. So out of all the ways the Astros could have spent $19 million this season, this just felt really unnecessary. And now it's just more money you're paying to a reliever over the next 5 years when you have bigger fish to fry. And if you're a team like the Rangers who didn't have a reliable closer, I could see you shelling out $19 million here, but not for a team that already has Ryan Pressly and Brian Abreu. I don't know, Matt. Maybe there's just a plan that I'm not understanding or seeing here. Maybe they're looking at their pitching options and thinking something along the lines of like, well, we've got all these kind of borderline starter type guys like JP France, Jose Urquidy. Maybe whoever's like not in the rotation at any given time is going to be the bridge guy that brings us from the starter to these high leverage guys. Maybe this was a panic move that came from the Kendall Graveman injury news. Maybe this was more of a knee-jerk reaction to that. They said it's not, but the timing indicates that maybe it was. Maybe I also just think this isn't a great deal because I'm not a fan of paying long-term deals for relievers. And maybe, if the Astros win the whole thing this year and Hader's the one that gets the last out, no one cares and it justifies the entire deal. Maybe the real motivation here was the Astros sign Hader so that the Rangers couldn't. because the Rangers needed a guy like that more than anyone based on their lack of an ability to close out one-run games and the fact that they still won the World Series without a guy like that. I mean, imagine what they could do with a guy like that this year. The other thing that I thought about when this first went down is by signing Hader, you've also kind of disrespected your guy, Ryan Pressly, since you're effectively demoting him. And I know that, Hader and Pressly and Espada all had this nice meeting where they talked it out like professionals because they're professionals. But think about this from Ryan Pressly's perspective. You're one of the best closers in the league on a team that just won the World Series 2 years ago. You got the final out. You've done nothing but succeed in the big moments in your career for this team. Now, your job is given to a guy that refused to pitch more than one inning last year at a time and who hasn't thrown a single pitch for your team yet, and he's making $5 million more a year than you. You can't tell me that doesn't sting, and I believe in Pressly even at age 36, but I can't believe that that's not going to affect the way he pitches in some way this season. And let's trickle that down to Brian Abreu. He thought he was next in line for that spot, and now he's second fiddle for at least the next 5 years if he stays in Houston. And out of that trio, he's going to have the least save opportunities of anybody, which has negative financial implications for him. Because when you look at how all these arbitration deals work, the more saves you get, the more leverage you have in these arbitration deals. And on top of all of that, they have to give up their second highest draft pick for Hader since he rejected that qualifying offer. And they also lose $500,000 in international bonus pick money. So, Matt, maybe it's in poor taste for me to complain about an owner that's actually spending money in an environment where owners are becoming a little bit more timid and reserved. But this just felt like an impulsive move that wasn't really thought out very thoroughly. And Dana Brown's comment of, oh, maybe we should just look at Hader comment doesn't really do much to dissuade me from that opinion. And throughout this entire Astros run, I know you have really strong feelings about it. I've always looked at what they've done, and obviously, there's some asterisks, but I've always felt like there was at least a grand plan there. There was like a scheme they were following. And this signing was the first time where I kind of feel like they've almost passed their timetable of that plan, because I don't really get this one at all.
Taylor, I'm going to take the people, I'm not really behind the scenes, but I'm going to give the people just a little bit kind of further description of kind of what our show is. When it comes to our show, first of all, I'm kind of the Astros hater on the show. Like that's kind of my role a little bit, I would say. And you're more of like the Astros proponent. Like I've
generally supported all of the moves that they've made and what they've done. You
generally support them. So we kind of
even
well
put the Jose Abreu signing as one of my better signings last year, which looks bad in retrospect, but that's how much I have believed in them.
Yes. And again, so we play well off each other because that's how we actually are, right? I naturally have a lot of hate and disdain for the Astros, and you're naturally more positive and you see kind of the good things that come out of it. So when you play the opposite role for the Astros, I love sitting on the other side and just listening to you cook because it's beautiful. It's absolutely amazing. And I wasn't going to barge in or interrupt because I agree with everything you said. Obviously, we know Josh Hader's a great closer. We know how good Josh Hader is. We know what Josh Hader is. He's dominant. But there's a lot of things that come with that. Like you said, Ryan Pressly was your closer on the team that won the World Series 2 years ago. And now you're going to move him out of that role? He's actually been more consistent than Hader has over the last half decade. Pressly's been better in 3 of the last 5 seasons than Hader has. Obviously, Hader's ceiling is, astronomical, through the roof ceiling. When he's dominant, he's one of the best closers ever, really. And then again, you're spending all that capital on him when you have all these guys you have to pay. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, it's crazy. So again, I've been having that argument with people in the comments of our posts for the last 2 weeks because that post has gotten a lot of traction. So I didn't want to talk about him anymore because I've just been really exhausted with having the same Josh Hader conversation for the last 2 weeks. So he wasn't on my list. But again, Taylor, I agree with everything that you had to say. I mean, it has to be on the list for all of those reasons because again, it just doesn't make sense from an Astros perspective why you would want to do that. And again, you could have gotten all those relievers again for shorter term deals too, where you wouldn't be locked into $19 million a year for 5 straight years, So again, I'm completely with you, Taylor, that is for sure one of the worst signings of the offseason. But listen, I'm going to get into another AL West reliever signing. Okay. And mine is he's a little more under the radar name. Okay. But it's a team that I don't like seeing sign anyone. And they just so happen to sign this guy. I'm going with the Angels signing Robert Stevenson, 3 years, $33 million. Okay. For those of you who don't know Robert Stevenson, he was unreal last year for the Rays in their bullpen. Okay. Like insane. 42 games. He had a .678 whip and 60 strikeouts in 38 innings. Okay. That's 14.1 Ks per nine, which is absolutely insane. Okay. The Rays turned this guy into one of the league's most dominant relievers. Like those Ks per nine numbers are what you saw from Felix Bautista last year in his historic year. Like they are absolutely insane statistics. Okay. However, like I just said, that was for the Rays. The Tampa Bay Rays, who are absolute wizards at getting the most out of pitchers. They do it literally every year with someone who you've never heard of or someone who you haven't heard from in a long time, who you didn't thought existed anymore. And now all of a sudden they're unhittable. Okay. But Stevenson, before getting to Tampa Bay, he was overall a below average pitcher in baseball for the 7 years before he got to Tampa. Okay. Basically, he had good full seasons in 2019 with the Reds and 2021 with the Rockies. And then last year, he was bad for Pittsburgh before going to the Rays and going off. Okay. And now he's going to the Angels, who do worse with most starting pitchers or with most pitchers in general than anyone in baseball. Okay. So it's hard to see this going right for the Angels. For example, let me just go back to, I don't know, last year where the Angels signed a guy coming off an awesome year, clearly and obviously the best year of his career, to a 3-year, $30+ million deal from an organization who has done historically well with pitchers. Does that sound familiar? That was Tyler Anderson, who signed for 3 years, $39 million, coming from the Dodgers after having an awesome 2022 season. And how was his 2023, you ask? Well, he threw 141 innings over 27 starts, and he had a 5.43 ERA. One of the worst starting pitchers in baseball last year. So, yeah, this situation may be different, but I doubt it. I think it's going to go badly for the Angels. And you know who I put on my worst signings of 2023 list, Taylor? Do you remember who I put on my worst signings of 2023 list?
Oh, yeah. You had Tyler Anderson on there. Yeah.
Yeah. I put Tyler Anderson on there, and it worked out pretty damn well. So let's go right back to the well and go with Robert Stevenson going to the Angels for 3 years and $33 million, Taylor.
That is hilarious because I didn't know your list coming into this. And as soon as you said Robert Stevenson, I started looking at Tyler Anderson's stats because I was like, that is the first guy I thought of too. Like, this is a guy that's coming it's a guy coming from a team that knows how to develop pitching. It knows how to utilize pitching and maximize a certain guy to find their strengths and put up good numbers. And then the Angels are like, oh, you guys have fixed this guy. So now we can just take him and he's going to be good for us. And it's like, no,
you can't, Angels.
That doesn't work like that, Angels. It doesn't work like that, Angels. And like Tyler Anderson, perfect example. His ERA basically doubles over 1 year from the Dodgers to the Angels. And Robert Stevenson is a guy that I would love if he was still on the Rays, or if like the Dodgers signed him, even like if the Yankees signed him. Some team that has like an idea about how to do anything with a pitcher
has a clue. Right.
This is the team that I was like, as soon as they signed Robert Stevenson, I was like, well, I'm glad that he's getting a 3-year deal. He's going to make a little cash.
Might be the last one he gets.
Yeah, it might be the last good contract he gets because the Angels are just going to absolutely ruin any potential he has. So I love that as your number 2. I am honestly... I'm actually surprised I didn't put that on my list now that you mentioned it, because that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, this was something that like I mentioned at the very beginning when we start talking about the worst contracts, this was like one that I was like searching for signings, and this one I didn't even have to think about at all. I was like, this is 100% guaranteed going to go bad, you know. So and he made some changes to his mix last year. His slider, he started throwing it a little bit harder, and it had a little bit more steep kind of vertical break, and it ended up getting a lot of whiffs. Obviously, 60 strikeouts and 38 innings is ridiculous. He's got a really nice splitter too, but again, it's just you're just on the Angels. Like, it's just not gonna work. Like, I don't like you said they don't have a clue. They don't know what they're doing. It's just not gonna go well. And so again, I guess I guess they have to spend their money somewhere, after you don't pay, after Ohtani doesn't want to re-sign and, nobody really wants to sign there. I mean, you kind of have to spend your money somewhere, but maybe they just shouldn't spend money. It seems like whenever they spend money, it doesn't go well. Rendon, Josh Hamilton, Pujols, Tyler Anderson, this one. Yeah, none of them go well. So maybe just hold on to your money. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to work out too well for you. But Taylor, man, it's about that time, man. It's about that time. This is what all the people have been waiting to see right here, man. What everybody, especially me, this is what I've been waiting to see. This is my favorite part of the show. Give me your worst MLB signing of the 2024 offseason, Taylor.
Well, this one was really tricky for me because I made this list before certain news came out. And unfortunately, the guy I had at number 1 on the worst signings list is now hurt, and he's probably out for the year. And I thought about taking him off the list, but I kind of left him on here because I think the Red Sox deserve a little bit of criticism for just continuing to not make great offseason decisions. And my number 1 was Lucas Giolito. Obviously, now he's probably out for the year. I love this deal for Giolito. Giolito seems like a solid dude. This is a good deal for him. I just don't think this was a good one for the Red Sox front office. He gets $18 million this year, has a $19 million player option next year, which, you got to imagine he's taking that now, especially. And then there's a vested option after the 2025 season, which is contingent on him throwing 140 innings. And I can understand the logic behind the Red Sox wanting Giolito here. They kind of have, I think we talked about in the last episode, they sort of have this stable of guys in their rotation that are all like 3s or 4s in a good rotation. We just saw them extend Brian Bayo, who they're hoping to be an ace. I just don't think he's not an ace right now. He still has a little bit more developing to do. So buying low on a guy like Giolito that has shown tremendous upside, I think makes a lot of sense for them. But then when I'm comparing this to some of the other deals that I've seen, I look at like the Diamondbacks getting Eduardo Rodriguez. They got him for 4 years, $80 million.
Yep.
And you're basically guaranteeing that you're going to get at least league average, if not better innings for $20 million a year. So the Red Sox, they're giving a guy who had one very good year, but then whose ERA was nearing 5 over the past 2 seasons, only about $1 million less than that Eduardo Rodriguez deal. And that just doesn't really make a ton of sense. And it also doesn't make a ton of sense to me because Giolito just doesn't seem like a very good fit for Fenway. He had the 4th highest fly ball rate among qualified starters last year, 2nd highest home run to fly ball rate, 6th highest barrel rate. And I just don't see how putting a guy like that in Fenway is going to result in a bounce back season for him. Like I said, I'm happy for Giolito with this deal. I'm rooting for him to get back on the field soon and bounce back and become that guy he was a few years ago. But I'm just confused why the Red Sox would take a gamble like this, given some of the other options out there. And the Red Sox in general are kind of starting to approach a bit of a dangerous territory. The fans aren't very happy with the front office. The players aren't very happy with the front office, and it's just starting to feel like another one of these teams that just doesn't really have much of a plan going forward. And with how good the rest of that division is, I just can't imagine this is not going to be a last place team for the next few years. And we both know that Boston fans don't like seeing their teams in last place for very long. So I saw this deal and just was like, I don't really see how this helps them at all, short term or long term.
Yeah, Boston fans wake up angry. So it's like they are not going to be happy with this contract for sure. Like one of the signings I mentioned for best signings, Marcus Stroman goes to the Yankees for 2 years, $37 million. It's the same contract, but one team's getting a much more stable, reliable starter. And the other team's getting a guy who you have no idea what you're going to get, even if he's healthy. It just wasn't a good idea for the Red Sox. And now obviously we're not going to see him until next season. So yeah, now it's a really, really bad contract for the Red Sox for sure. But I'm going to go to my worst signing. And listen, Taylor, I've been going to the well with these two teams a lot over this episode. They're two of the three, probably the 2 busiest free agency teams and 2 of the 3 busiest offseason teams in general. And I'm going to go back to the well here. And again, I kind of talked about the same thing with Yamamoto. It's a big money deal for a guy who we haven't seen a lot from. And I'm going to go to the San Francisco Giants signing Jung-Hoo Lee to 6 years, $113 million deal. Now, do I think he's going to be a solid big league option? for the San Francisco Giants. I do. Just like the Yamamoto contract, I don't think he's going to be a bad player. His numbers in the KBO were great, and I love his contact bat, a skill that is 100% underappreciated in today's baseball. I just had an argument with somebody on TikTok that said that Luis Ariz was an average player. Okay, he was an average player because he's not great defensively, and they're, what you're just looking at his batting average. Like, yeah, dude, he just won the batting title back-to-back years. He's doesn't strike out at all. Contact-oriented players are really, really important, obviously. But again, this was a massive overpay to me. A lot of projections had his contract at around 5 years, $50 million before he signed this deal. He gets an extra year and obviously a ton more AAV, and it's actually a $132 million deal for the Giants because they had to pay the $19 million posting fee for his KBO team. So again, there's that extra little fee there. On the good side, again, he's going to provide a lot of contact. Like I said, his projected slash line by Fangraphs over the duration of the contract is 280 average, 340 on base, and 415 slugging. So for a 755-ish OPS, which is really good for a center fielder, okay, who is likely to provide solid defense because he's got good range and a solid arm. But he also suffered a fractured ankle in July of last season, which is definitely a concern. A major lower body injury to someone whose game is built a lot around his legs and running is a concern to me. And to me, there's a lot of risk beyond this for the future for the Giants too. Sure, he put up great numbers in the KBO. The MLB is a completely different animal, okay? Average fastballs in the KBO are around 90. Average fastballs in the MLB are around 95 and above. Anybody who's seen the difference between a 90-mile-per-hour fastball and a 95 and above mile-per-hour fastball knows it ain't even the same. It ain't even the same pitch. It's a completely different pitch. That thing gets on you so much faster when it's 95 and above compared to where it's the low 90s, okay? So if you look at Lee's slash lines in the KBO versus fastballs 94 and above, 276 average, which you can take, 300 on base, which you will not take, 379 slugging, which you will not take, for a 679 OPS on fastballs 94 and above. And that's going to be every single game in MLB. Every single game, you are going to be seeing 94 mile per hour fastballs and above. So this first year could get especially rough for Lee, seeing fastballs consistently in the upper 90s. And if you struggle year one, especially out the gate with a big contract in a completely different country, again, kind of where I mentioned, like with Yamamoto, where you don't speak that language, where a lot of Bay Area fans expected you to perform, where you got a contract that expects you to perform, I think this could go very poorly. So I think they already overpaid a contract compared to what he was projected to get for a player who is contact oriented, but probably won't get many stolen bases. Fangraphs had him projected for either 1 or 2 stolen bases every single year. He was, every year for his contract, and he has struggled with MLB velo and has never played in the MLB before. I think for the Giants, this isn't really a guy who's going to put butts in the seats either or bring in a lot of revenue. It's not like, Ohtani, where he's going to be hitting massive home runs. Like, I don't think many people, like I just said, the contact approach is underappreciated. So I don't think people are going to be paying tons of money to see a guy who's going to slap a single the other way, So he's just a pretty good player at best, I think, for the Giants. So although I liked a lot of their other moves this offseason, as far as the Giants go, I think this one could turn really bad really quick. And I think this is the worst contract of the 2024 offseason, Taylor.
I was really close to putting this one on my list as well because I was really excited for Jung-Hoo Lee.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm a big
seems
fan
like it seems like a good kid.
I'm a really big fan of Korean baseball players, especially since I've told you about it. I started watching this show on Netflix that's like a Korean baseball reality show where it's like all these retired KBO players playing against like the best high school and college players in Korea. Total aside, but I've really enjoyed watching that show and kind of fallen in love with Korean baseball. One of the things I've noticed on that show is their eyes absolutely light up when they see any pitch over 140 kilometers per hour on the gun. When you convert that to miles per hour, that's about 87 miles per hour. So they're really impressed by 87 miles per hour. And even if you bump that up to 150 kilometers per hour, which they go absolutely nuts over, that's 93.2. Maybe the best argument I can give for this being maybe not as bad of a signing is splitter usage, I think, is going to blow up across the league this year. And the players that have played in the NPB and the KBO are going to know how to hit that pitch a lot better than the guys here,
sure.
Because the differences in the way that pitch works from here to overseas is massive. So maybe they have a leg up on certain pitchers just because they've seen them more, but That's me really digging for some value in that.
That wasn't the best allocation of resources, like you talked about with the Astros, Taylor. That wasn't the best allocation of resources. I think they would have been much better off spending that money for Jordan Montgomery or spending that money for Blake Snell and bringing them in. And I think that would make their team a lot better. But shout out to Jung Hoo Lee. I really, really hope he does well. I just don't know if it's gonna turn out that great for the Giants. But that is gonna do it for us here today for the Bush League Bros. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. We would greatly appreciate it. Also, comment down below your worst and best signings of this offseason so far. And be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms as well, Instagram and TikTok at Bush League Bros. Again, you've been showing us a lot of love. I've been going back and forth with y'all in the comments on some of these shorts. I've been having a lot of fun doing that. So keep commenting on those. Also, follow at the House Call Sports on all platforms as well. If you like content from all sports, that's the place to go. And that's going to be it for us. Peace.
Here's a question for you, Matt. Who was the most inconsequential signing of the offseason?
IKF.
I knew that's who you were going to say.
I love you, IKF, but damn.
You know what's really frustrating? I started a player on MLB, the show, Road to the Show, and I was a pitcher, and I had a really bad stretch of like 3 games, and it was punctuated by giving up a fucking grand slam to Isaiah kind of.
No shot, really?
I turned off my PlayStation. I turned it off. I haven't played it in like 3 weeks after that.